Good morning. We are so happy to have you all with us. Today, we are talking about making a winning offer when buying a home. Very excited to be here with licensed associate real estate brokers Aaron Seawood, Jed Lewin, and Julianne Bond. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have you. And Jed, a special effort from you because you have a 3-week-old baby in your home. So you're looking great. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, if anyone has been watching the real estate market across the country, you know there has been a frenzy. And so when bidding wars are happening left and right and people are having a hard time getting the home that they want to, it's important to have some tips on how to make a winning offer. So today we have 17 questions we're going to cover that are important regarding making a winning offer, and with 3 of our incredible Triplemint agents who regularly make winning offers for their clients. So Julianne, over to you. Well, first question is, how important is it to understand comparables when presenting an offer as a buyer?
It's essential to understanding the comparables and the market for that matter. The comparables within the context of what's going on in the market. I guess the way I think about it is, we are the experts and it's our job to know everything that is possible to know. And it's certainly important to know more than our clients do. It's embarrassing when they know more than we do. So it's pretty important.
Okay. And, when I was growing up, my father would always teach me, like, let's say you're at like a flea market or a car shop and you have to play it cool. Don't show any interest so that they don't take you for a ride. Is that true, Jed? Do you have to play it cool at showings when you're buying?
I think it totally depends on the situation and whether it's a private showing versus a public open house with other buyers in the room. When I'm counseling buyers before we walk in the door, if it's a private showing for just us, they can express their true feelings. I don't think they need to play it cool. When there's other people in the apartment, I tell them before we walk in the door, if you like it and there's other people here, don't let anyone know you like it, because people always want what other people want.
Okay.
So I think it's very contextual whether to play it cool. And my job as the broker while we're in there is to play it cool and talk to the seller's agent and gather as much information as I can while you're looking around.
And for those of you watching who don't know, Jed has, I think, 17 years as an attorney. So negotiation is kind of in your DNA, right? You know the tricks.
Been this a long time.
Okay. And how many times should you see a home before making an offer, Aaron?
I think that really depends on the buyer. If a buyer has been out enough, they're really informed, and they can really appreciate what's in front of them, I think the first time they see a home, they can make an offer. And sometimes the temperature of that situation will warrant that. Other times, I think it's important to at least get a second look. And hopefully, if you saw it in the morning, you can see it in the evening. If you saw it during the week, see it on the weekend. I think that'll really give you good context, because it's going to be a place you're going to spend a lot of time at. So you want to make sure that you have those bases covered.
Makes sense. Okay, Julianne, what tips do you have for making an offer in a seller's market?
I think in any market, what is essential to being successful for a buyer making an offer is to understand what's important to the seller before making any offer. Just trying to get a pulse to know what do they care about, and then go back and regroup, figure out what it is that you can offer that will give the seller what they want. And for those things that you can't satisfy, but there are other things that are important to them, you can give that to them as well.
Okay. And so, Jed, why would you say it's important to understand the seller's motivation?
Well, I think that, it's all the reasons that Julianne just listed out. Your understanding the seller's motivation is the key to crafting a winning offer. Some sellers will value time. Some value dollar return. Some will value flexibility. So understanding what the seller's real motivations are, what their needs are, what their pain points are, and what's important to them is the key to sort of setting up your offer in a way that helps it stand apart from other offers or makes it more attractive to any given seller. So the point I was making about what I'm doing while you're playing it cool in the apartment is gathering as much information from the seller's agent about the seller's mindset and motivation and need as possible to help you make that decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what tips do you have for making an offer in a buyer's market, Aaron?
So this probably won't be as obvious. I mean, you're in a buyer's market, so the prevailing thought is to go low, and obviously you want to get the best price. I'm going to say to be respectful. You have to think that the seller was attached to a price. They can't get that price, but it still means that you want to get a deal done. And I think that when you have a seller that, be it directly or because of the market, a bit wounded, you want to be respectful. You want to come in, you want to couch the offer, so that you can get to a place that they can actually receive it and then accept it. So I think it's a mistake to just come in and lowball. I mean, that may be what's warranted, but what I found is that if you come in and really show some appreciation and it's just kind of like, hey, this is where the market is, and frame it the right way, I think that it gets received and you actually get an offer, way below than probably the seller wanted to trade just because they felt that respect there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Julianne, how can someone make a competitive offer when they're financing that will compete with an all-cash offer?
I mean, again, this goes back to the context, right? Of what is important to the seller. I mean, the truth is that, the facts are the facts. You can only do so much. But what I have found over the years is that, depending on what is important to the seller, you can leverage that, and then the cash may or may not even be the best offer. If it's a co-op, there are boards to consider. There's all kinds of conditions that must be considered when a seller is considering whether they should accept an offer. But I think the key really continues to be understanding what is going on with the seller in order to be able to try to get their attention and keep it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, there's been a lot in the news recently about love letters and including a love letter when making an offer. It's a little bit of a controversial topic. What are the pros and cons of including a love letter to the seller when submitting an offer, Jed?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and the philosophy on it has changed quite a bit in the last few years. The pros are easy to understand. It can help you stand out from more than just the numbers on a page, more than just your revenue financial statement. It's a way to help you create a connection with the seller that might give you a leg up, to create some sort of I'm just like you feeling in the seller is a great way to get a leg up over other parties, which is also the exact reason why they're dangerous. Any sort of biographical information that you're sharing in those love letters can be used in a discriminatory way. So, there's sexism and ageism and race and religion and gender and marital status and familial status and just a million other little dangerous things that you can reveal. And most sellers' attorneys are now encouraging sellers to not accept love letters for exactly that reason. No one wants to consciously or even subconsciously make a discriminatory decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. And that's a challenge, because for someone who's attached to their home, they've lived in it many years, obviously they're going to want someone who's also going to love their home and feel attached to it and point out what they value in it. So some people still do it, but it does have its pros and cons. So it's good to consider that. Okay. And then Aaron, coming back to questions similar to what you just answered, like what should you consider if offering below asking price? If there's anything else besides the fact that like being respectful, you know, when that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, what can you benefit? I mean, like, so below the price, what should you consider if offering below asking price? You know, I think you're going to look at all the same considerations. It feels like we're echoing a lot of the same, whether it's above or beyond. I think what other considerations? I mean, really just the motivation, I think timing, any other considerations that are important potentially to the seller. I mean, we're representing the buyer. Obviously, the key thing is for them. And also their appetite for how high they want to go. I think there's the reverse there, right? Like, you know, at what point is it like, hey, we're going to be under the ask, and using the comps and using everything that we have as a guide to inform what that offer is going to look like. So I think all of those are important, and then kind of echoing what we said before, kind of as a through line.
Rosanna, can I just jump in for 1 second? Everything that Aaron is saying is just 100% accurate. And there's just one more thing that I deal with a lot with my buyers. The question I hear most often when we're getting ready to submit an offer is, what's the lowest I can offer on this apartment? And it's just the wrong question. You have to think of your offer as a tool to get to an accepted offer. So your initial offer has to be based on something that is a roadmap that you as the agent help your clients see. What is going to happen 3 moves from now? So your first offer, you sort of have to work backwards from where the apartment's going to trade. And this is to Julianne's point of knowing the comparables. You really have to think about what your end point is to know what your starting point is.
Makes a lot of sense.
Good point.
Okay. And so in the case of offering above asking price, which is very common these days, what should you consider in that case, Julianne?
Oh, well, I mean, I love what Aaron and Jed have been saying about this. And so I would just add to this because, you know, it really depends. Let's assume we know what the comps are. Let's assume we even know, okay, it really should trade here. At the end of the day, it is up to the buyer. What is this property worth to them? I always say to my buyers, when, you know, don't worry about the competition, forget about what everybody else is doing. You have to forget about what everybody else is doing, because that will make you crazy, because you will never know. All you can do is the best you can do. So if you are having to do something heroic in order to get this property, think about what this is worth to you, and that is what you should offer. Not a penny less, not a penny more, because if you get it, you won't freak out the next day when the deal is accepted, but you have nothing signed, because that's how we do it in New York. Is, you know, it takes a couple of weeks sometimes to get a signed contract, so nothing's binding. You don't want people waking up the next day and regretting what they have just done. At the same time, if they don't get it, you don't want them kicking themselves because they held back. Sometimes you can't help what the outcome is, but you can control what you're willing to do.
Okay. And then when it comes to determining your bottom line, what's the best way for a buyer to determine their bottom line, Jed?
Well, it's a great question. And it's really very much the exercise that Julianne just walked through. I think the best starting point is to sit down with your mortgage lender and your financial advisor and figure out, you know, what is your comfortable budget? How much can you borrow from a bank and be guaranteed that you're going to get that money when at the closing table, but also be able to live the life that you want and not be overstretched. Once you've determined your budget, you know, there's always some flexibility there. And I walk through the exercise that Julianne just talked about with my clients. If you pay this amount, will you still be happy? And if you hear tomorrow that someone else paid $10,000 more and got it because you wouldn't find the extra $10,000 over 30 years is basically nothing at these interest rates. will you be upset if someone else just outbids you a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, because this is how much I can afford, then that's your number.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's maybe a tricky conversation to have and thing to decide, because obviously everybody kind of wants to get the best deal, and it's an emotional process. So, Aaron, in your case, how do you help clients keep a grip on their emotions during this, emotional process?
I mean, it's a roller coaster ride, but it doesn't have to be. I think it starts out, I give my clients, I manage expectations. I really give them a clear path from beginning to end, whether they're doing resale or new development and what those likely scenarios are. That gives a lot of peace of mind. Purchasing timeline so that they kind of know in advance. What you don't want is buyers to be ambushed. No one likes to just be suddenly surprised. So the way to grip those emotions is to say, here's what it looks like. Can't predict every single outcome, but here's what's most likely to happen as we go down these different paths. And then one thing that we really do a lot on our team is we operate with a rolling 3. And what that is that, when you're up against cash buyers, like we mentioned earlier, or a lot of competition as it is right now, you don't want your buyer to be fixated on one property. It's really dangerous, because they lose that, they potentially are just out the race. So if you start out the whole process saying, look, we're going to use a rolling 3, use your favorite 3 places. Obviously, depending on property type and price point, you don't always have 3, but a lot of times you will get there. And if you're working off that rotation, if something disappears, you'll be disappointed, but you won't be devastated. So I think the summary is just really managing expectations and kind of setting out the table of what they can expect.
Good point. And then, okay, so let's say, you make an offer. How long can negotiations take, Jed?
Well, like with anything, it totally depends on the situation. Holidays and weekends can sort of disrupt that, and travel. But as a rule of thumb, 24 to 48 hours is what you should be anticipating. I like a lot of what Aaron was saying about preparing your clients for what to expect. And you can't always map out every possibility, but to prepare people in advance for a negotiation. And I like to stick to a 3-part negotiation. And I prepare my clients for this. We make an initial offer. The seller will counter, the seller will counter, and we'll accept the offer. And if at the end of the 5th move, we haven't reached an agreement, we're probably not going to. Once you get more than 3 rounds, you become nickel and diming, and you're talking past each other, or not quite seeing what the other is saying. So it's just not productive. So to control that, basically 3 rounds, 24 to 48 hours.
Okay. That's great to keep in mind. It really is so much about managing expectations in the beginning. Okay, what are some deal killers you see quite often, Julianne?
Oh, I would say that for me, the top 3 are time. Too much time goes by, too long to respond to an offer. There's lots of time is not a friend of a deal. I would say any time people get heated up about things, whether it is the buyer or the seller, or even whether the agents sometimes will get worked up. That doesn't really help to get to just smiling. Yeah, it happens sometimes, but we try to keep everything kind of calm. I would say the third thing is that maybe this hasn't really been said, but this is how I think about it. When I start working with my buyers and sellers, I explain to them that in a way they kind of have a team that is going to help them through this whole process. Their real estate broker, their real estate attorney, if it's a buyer and they're borrowing, their lender. Those 3 parties are essential to a client's success, and I cannot stress that enough. And if even one of those people is not at the top of their game and very focused on their client and what their client needs and the timing considerations, and all of that, and communication, that can also affect a deal.
Okay. Okay. And so when do you know that it's time to walk away, Aaron?
I typically, to echo what Jed said earlier, I always guide my clients to have a walkaway number. And if you can't meet, like, we're very similar in that regard of like, you're not going to go back 50 times on rounds. It should be like kind of fair exchange, no robbery. If you don't feel that there's going to be a meeting of the minds, if you are just at a point where you're like, you know what, this doesn't feel right anymore. Because for some people, if it's an investment, it's less about feel, and it's just, you can go on numbers of rounds. When we're talking about residential, this is going to be your home, you're going to lay your head here. It's still going to have a feeling of attachment. And sometimes people get beat up in the process, but that will normally resolve over time and they'll be fine. But to walk away when it's just all matter is just staring you in the face. It's just that this is not a good situation. And I would also say too, depending what stage you're in, whether it's due diligence or some part where you've discovered some things that are unsettling, you never want to have buyer's remorse. And so you want to go into things feeling really confident and strong, and whether that's at the offer stage or even just getting a little bit beyond that, accepted and not fully in the contract as well.
Okay. 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 Good to keep in mind. Thank you. So, in a market like this, people sometimes try to get the upper hand and they'll think, oh, I'm going to work directly with the seller's agent because that will be more motivating to them to get the deal done. And that can be very, very misguided. Julianne, why do you recommend that buyers work with, obviously this has to be an excellent agent. You don't want to work with just any agent. For example, Aaron, Julianne, and Jed, excellent agents. Why, instead of going direct to the seller's agent?
Because you deserve to have someone who has your best interests at heart and not a fiduciary obligation to the seller. The seller's agent, their job, their fiduciary is to their seller. A buyer really does need to have somebody who is going to be able to do all the things that we've been talking about, that, Aaron talked about, and Jed as well, starting the relationship with a conversation about what is realistic to expect and how is this going to go. Just knowing that, I think, gives a lot of buyers peace of mind. Certainly having an expert who knows the market, knows where things should be trading, can give them very solid advice on how to approach making an offer. And also, think about just the simple matter of having that conversation about, well, what is important to the seller? It's really difficult for a buyer to do that directly, but their agent can do it for them if they're doing their job.
Right. Of course.
And to take this a little further, Aaron and Julianne and I also spend a huge amount of our time representing sellers. I know for me, I'm not looking to maximize my commission on a deal. I would prefer that a buyer comes with a qualified, experienced agent into the deal who I can co-broke the deal with so that I know that this deal is going to be done. I'm not looking to take on extra obligation and extra work to the disadvantage of my seller just to maximize my commission. That's never my role. It's never my desire. I would prefer you come with a buyer's agent if I'm representing the seller.
Right. That actually makes your offer more compelling, because a lot of times you're leveraging the reputation of that buyer's agent. When you have when we talked about a lot of competitive offers, that could be the differentiator. Obviously, it's going to be price, it's going to be terms and all of that. But if the last thing is, okay, this deal was put together and it looks crazy, and this other buyer's agent is rock solid and they put it together impeccably, normally how it starts is how it ends. So that's another reason as well.
Good way to say that.
Yeah. Well, these are all really important tips. I hope that anyone who's out there considering buying is, keeping these tips in mind, because they make a world of difference, particularly in the market like we're in right now. So for anyone who is looking to buy or sell or rent, obviously, please reach out to our teams here. Aaron Seawood, who leads Team Carte Blanche, Julianne Bond, who leads the Julianne Bond team, and Jed Lewin. They're incredible. They're wonderful. You're going to love working with them. They're very knowledgeable. They've sold a lot of real estate, so they know the nuances that you might not know when buying or when selling. And so please reach out. You can either reach out to them directly or reach out to us at hello@triplemint.com. And thank you again, Aaron, Jed, and Julianne, for being with us today and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.